This episode of the Coarse podcast has been brought to you by Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, family-owned and operated screen printing and embroidery business located in a historic storefront on Old Berwick Road in the heart of Espy. They've been doing screen printing for over 20 years. They have high-quality product at a low price. Be sure to check them out. Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, 570-784-1212. Now, on to the show.
Hi, this is Wesley Rosler. You're listening to my dad, Shawn Rosler, on the Coarse podcast. Get cooking!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is episode number 102. I'm still not getting used to that 100 vibe yet, but I'm sure it'll kick in eventually. With you as always, host creator Shawn Rosler. How is everyone doing this evening? Now be honest with me. How long did you really think it was going to take me to go back to the old Top Chef well? With Kentucky season having as many standouts as it did, it's really hard to stay away. And, you know, the best part about planning the 100th episode, the live show, was that it kind of broke up my relentless Pokemon-esque gotta catch 'em all mentality. But seriously, they're all that damn good. And I just happen to have the honor of having one of the goodest or best, I used to teach English, of the season. Anyway, tonight's guest, hailing from St. Paul, Minnesota, spent his childhood in the kitchen learning from his mother and grandmother. Growing up, his favorite TV show was Yan Can Cook. My God, do we have some bonding to do there, sir. And on his 5th birthday, he asked for an easy bake oven. Same. After graduating from Le Cordon Bleu College of Culinary Arts in Atlanta, he moved back home to hone his skills in some of Minneapolis's top restaurants, including Meritage and Brasserie Centrale. Our guest is currently the owner and executive chef of 2 restaurants in the Minneapolis area, Handsome Hog and Pearl and the Thief. You'll likely know him, if not from Top Chef Kentucky, from his win he posted on Iron Chef America. Take that, Guarnaschelli. He's fearless in his craft, dedicated to discipline, and never settles for anything but the best. So why he's doing the show, the jury's still out on. Anyway, as if he wasn't busy enough, since Top Chef, there's been some restaurant action adding to his arsenal. I'm going to let him divulge that, and likely more plans in the works. So how about I stop talking and bring him on out? Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, the executive chef of Handsome Hog and Top Chef Kentucky standout, Chef Justin Sutherland. Chef, how are we doing this evening, sir?
I am wonderful. Thanks for having me on, man.
You got it. You got it. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy with more irons in the fire than I can even count, and I can't wait to hear, as I'm sure many people can't wait to hear, all about that. So before we get rolling, though, folks new to the show, folks with terrible short-term memories like myself, starters, mains, and afters. Starters, we talk about where the guest in question came from, what their backstory really is. Mains, where they're at, what they're doing, what they love, what drives them. And finally, afters, a little bit more irreverent, a little bit more off the cuff, but no one's been injured in 101 episodes, so I don't see that happening today. So without further ado, Chef Justin Sutherland, tell me about where and what you grew up eating.
Growing up eating, I came from a very diverse family. I got a grandmother from Japan, grandfather from Norway, and another grandma from Mississippi. So my childhood eats were extremely diverse, to say the least. I mean, everything from ramen to lutefisk.
I was just gonna make a joke about lutefisk sushi, but you beat me to it. Awesome.
That was Wednesday nights at the VFW with Grandpa. He used to drag me out to the lutefisk dinners.
Yeah. See, that's how you know you're some Midwest Norwegian action there with the lutefisk reference.
Yep.
So everybody got that if they're from that area. I would venture to say, and you're going to correct me, obviously, but given your background, I cannot see how you could have possibly been a picky eater growing up.
Not at all. It wasn't even an option. We got exposed to a lot of stuff growing up, but also came from a family where you ate what was cooked and you didn't leave the table till it was gone. So I think the only thing in my life that I don't eat is mayonnaise.
You're an anti-mayoer.
Yes, hugely anti-mayoer.
All right. I got to break form a minute. You've got to explain, because I've met a handful of your kind in life, and I have to hear the story. What is it?
I don't even know, where initially the story came from.
Uh-huh.
I don't like the way it just looks unnatural. I don't like the way it moves. I don't like the way it smells. Being generally yellow and it comes out this white color, I just can't do it.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. And in the spirit of full disclosure, as folks who listen to the show know, my two Achilles heels, respectively, are Jell-O and pudding for that textural reason. So, yeah, I guess I can relate on that. So no difficulty with like sour cream or yogurt?
No, not at all. Love sour cream, love yogurt. I'll even do aiolis if I make them in-house with some sort of flavor.
Uh-huh.
I just can't especially do, a jarred store-bought mayo. Like, if it touches my skin, I have a mini panic attack.
Oh my God. All right, so you heard it here. If you're around Chef, beware the mayo. So obviously that's not a food that you would miss, but let's talk about going back to your childhood, foods growing up, and again, just from that diverse background, which sounds incredible to have grown up in, there's got to be some foods that you wax nostalgic on. What are some of the foods you miss from that growing up?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the stuff that my grandma used to make. I mean, her being from Japan, she was always doing very traditional Japanese dinners. Tonkatsu, the breaded pork cutlet was something we always had at her house.
Yes.
Sukiyaki, that one pot kind of Japanese home style dinner we would always have. But then she really had to learn how to cook Midwestern and cook for my grandpa. So it was always the braised spare ribs with sauerkraut, meatloaf, very meat and potato stuff. So we had a very broad spectrum of food.
That's amazing. And, again, to kind of jump forward, having watched you on this season, which, again, it was an honor and a privilege. And, that's probably one of the biggest gifts of this job. It's not really a job. It's more of a passion project for me. But, is to actually fanboy out as I'm watching the season. And now for 5 years, getting to talk to you folks about it. It was absolutely nothing short of incredible what you did. And, I as a fan, thank you for it. That's got to be like running a marathon literally every day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's nothing you can prepare for. You understand what the culinary challenges are going to be. You can pull everything from your toolbox, but yeah, just the marathon aspect of it, never knowing what's next, the seclusion, the constantly thinking on your feet. I mean, it's nothing that you can prepare for. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And having spoken to him, I got to know, Eric Adjepong, was he as nice as he seemed to be?
Absolutely. Eric, since the show, has really become one of my best friends. We talk often. We've gone and seen each other. He's been out to Minnesota quite a few times. I have a trip planned to see him here coming up. Excellent. But yes, he was actually that disgustingly nice. At first, I didn't know if I liked him because I was like, you're too nice. Is this real?
See, I didn't want to go forward and say that, but even in having him on the show, I'm like, dude, you're really fucking nice. Like, how are you that just polite and congenial? It bugged me to an extent, but all right, I'll take your word on it.
I'm not gonna lie. I've told him this too. At first, I couldn't get a read on him. I'm like, this dude is either full of shit or the nicest guy in the world. And luckily enough, he ended up being the nicest guy in the world.
Right on, man. So, obviously the two of you, as well as 14 others, end up on this fantastic show, and you all have this great story of your culinary influence growing up. I love hearing every single one of them, from Nene to Eric, to Eric, and now to you. I ask, who is your greatest culinary influence growing up? Like, who pushed you forward in that direction, whether you realized it or not?
I would have to say, just going back to childhood, both of my grandmothers, one coming from Mississippi, then, living in Iowa, really being deep into soul food, always having the big family suppers, and, food just really became, kind of my grandma Zona's love language. That's how she neighborhood. Then my other grandmother on my mom's side being from Japan, who came here really speaking no English, but having, having food to kind of tell her story. So food became much more than nourishment for me growing up. Just really watching these two, tell their stories through their cooking.
So that's a fantastic segue then. Realizing food is so much more, and that's almost been, the motto of what I've tried to do in my humble way here is to make people realize, like, it's more than just this sustenance, this thing. And here you have this just multifaceted background pushing you forward, and I'm sure you didn't even realize it at the time, but when was the moment that you went, holy shit, food's amazing, I want to literally give my life to it?
I mean, to be honest, food was always amazing to me. I knew that I was always going to be in the kitchen and always going to be a lover of eating. But as a career path, I mean, it happened a little bit later in life. It wasn't, being a chef wasn't the glamorous or lucrative career that it at least appears to be these days. But,
Right.
Pre-Food Network, food television, pre your podcast, it wasn't the career, that you said, hey, Dad, I'm going to be a chef.
Right.
So I went to business school, did that first, and it was after that sitting in an office for 6 months selling mortgage, thinking I was going to blow my brains out every day when I realized that I was just not cut out for that life, and I just kept looking back to the smiles I had in the kitchen and decided to pivot and change directions.
Hell yeah. Pivot. That's, you can't. Yeah. And I have to ask, did I just make it into your timeline there? Did that actually happen? I felt like I heard you say before my show, and I'm like, did I just make it into Justin Sutherland's timeline? Holy shit.
You did. You are a piece.
This is going huge. I should hang it up now. No, but it's so funny that so many folks do fall into it that way, because I think it's one of those things where you're right, it doesn't seem logical, and you and I, let me kind of corroborate with you here a bit on the Yan Can Cook thing. Growing up, it was public access television. It was Justin Wilson, Martin Yan, Julia Child, great chefs of the fill in the region. But it wasn't glamorous. It was kind of half shitty quality. The shows and everything. And even when you go to the early days of the Food Network, I had the honor of speaking with David Rosengarten. If you remember the show Taste, when Food Network first came out.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about the Great White Buffalo. I was stammering over every freaking word that was coming out of my mouth at first.
I can imagine.
But that's the era of food, quote unquote, celebrity that people don't realize. People who were fast to shit on Emeril, and they came out in droves because it was this elitism to an extent, but
right.
Emeril, I think, was the striking of the match. And
absolutely, he was a pioneer in what we have today.
Yeah, for sure. And so, now, and I hear it from so many folks who are, in it like you are, that it's incredible the expectations of the folks coming out of culinary school now. They don't want to grind. They don't want to stand on lines for 12, 16 hours. You know what I mean? They want to go right to the contract.
I believe me, I know what you mean. I have close to 300 employees, and I wish at least half of them came from our generation of, just stand up, put your head down, and cook. But people are very entitled and don't want to do the work so much these days.
You're absolutely correct. My very short time, I don't necessarily come from a culinary background. I was an English teacher. Now I'm an e-learning guy. So how this happened, I don't know. Like you, though, I've just always kind of loved the kitchen in general, the culinary influence in general. And I had a couple stints where I did work on a line. And there's something so gratifying about that, so humbling, that it grinds you down to nothing and builds you back up. And now, having the show, I've gotten the chance to do some guest cook spots. I actually cooked with Grill Bitch from Kitchen Confidential, Beth Oretsky, at Hudson Valley Brewing. And we were prepping until 3 a.m, got up 6 a.m, got in the cooler. I literally worked in a walk-in all day, and we served like 400 people. And again, my head was down. I was in a walk-in cooler, and that was my day.
Yep.
But you walk out, and it's so rewarding. So anyway, I don't mean to steal the story because you've clearly got more, but I totally hear what you're saying about, you know, this generation coming out. They expect to have the restaurant deal right away.
Yep. No, absolutely. I mean, my beginning days of being a line cook, I mean, I would, you know, come home halfway in tears from being broken down and halfway in tears from feeling accomplished at what I did. But, you know, you didn't complain. You didn't, you know, you came in 3 hours before your shift and didn't clock in because you wanted to make sure your station was right. You know, the guy next to you, you wanted to be as good as the guy next to you. And now it's not so much that. So we definitely we're adapting the way kitchens are handled for sure.
Definitely, definitely. And now, you know, I have to ask, transitioning from starters here to mains in the show, I have to ask, you know, being where you're at, and I can see the hunger, you know, in you, having watched Top Chef, having watched the episode of Iron Chef America, you know, clearly you're a hungry guy, but you've got to have your top of Mount Everest moments sometimes where you look at what you've done and you have just a holy shit moment of epic proportions. Is that true?
It is. They come at weird times, and you know, and they're definitely short lived. I mean, you have to stop and appreciate, you know, what you've done and where you're at, but also know that you're not done, and there's a lot more work to be done. So I'm not going to say that I don't feel proud of myself sometimes, but I also know I still got some mountain to climb. So
that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal, and truly, I think that's the kind of response, that's the kind of gist I get from folks who are, you know, at your station, you know, in life. So again, congratulations to you on everything to date and what's going to come in the future. So let's talk about your current now. I know I mentioned Handsome Hog and I mentioned Pearl and the Thief, but there's a lot of others. So just, can you tell everybody about what you're doing, what you've done beyond just those two? With, I believe it's the Madison Restaurant Group now?
Correct. Madison Restaurant Group was the group that I opened Handsome Hog with almost 4 years ago, which was my first restaurant that I opened. In that time, that group expanded to about 7 other restaurants, and as of the first of the year, I took over as the controlling partner of the group, and have since been going restaurant by restaurant, reconcepting, rebranding, giving direction, and just really trying to elevate the group. So yeah, went from 1 to 8 restaurants real fast, and currently have 2 more in construction. So things are busy.
Yeah. It sounds totally manageable. Totally manageable.
I got a good team. It's obviously not all me.
Sure, for sure. Most recently, Fire and Whiskey. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was an interesting concept for us. It's outside of the city, in a smaller town, New Richmond, Wisconsin, right across the river from the cities. And that is our old school steakhouse supper club kind of vibe. We found this amazing building for a great deal, and just kind of really struggled to figure out what that town needed. It was full of bars, burger joints, this and that. So just kind of talking to the town, figuring out what they wanted. They wanted a place, of their own to go out and, say they're going out without having to drive 45 minutes into the city. So we tried to give that to them.
Sure. And, just looking at the site, because, I haven't been there yet, and I emphasize the yet. Yeah. You have me at drink menu, dinner menu. So simplistic, so straightforward. I love it. Tell me, what's your favorite cocktail on the menu right now?
Oh, when it comes to cocktails, regardless of what my restaurant is, I'm an old-fashioned guy or a bourbon on the rock guy. I don't get too fancy with the cocktails. Give me something brown and delicious, and I'm good.
Amen. I'm right there with you. And I see the mules. Obviously the mules are a wonderful wonderful swat that's going across bars and restaurants these days. And looks like you have no shortage of options there. And
absolutely.
Wow. Just incredible. So like you said, it really kind of, smacks of that old school steakhouse supper club vibe.
Yep.
For sure. So as you begin to look at these entities and begin to reimagine them, obviously you've got to get your inspiration from somewhere. Where is it you go to that helps you kind of create these concepts?
I think the first thing I do is look at the neighborhood. It really is figuring out what the space needs. And then I kind of figure out what I would want to do, in that location.
Mm.
Luckily enough, 6 of my restaurants are in my neighborhood of St. Paul. 6 of my restaurants are all within 9 blocks of each other. So, so when I talk to my neighbors, I talk to my friends, and I think about what it is that the neighborhood's missing.
For sure. And that's got to be a convenient commute anyway, having them that close.
It's a gift and a curse. It's nice to be close, but sometimes it's nice to be far away. So.
Sure. Oh, I can imagine. So you've gone from 1 to 8. You've gone Top Chef. You've gone Iron Chef. And so across all of those experiences, you've obviously created so many things. If you had to put your finger on one, let's focus on dish here for a minute. If you had to put your finger on one dish that you've put out that you're absolutely proudest of, now across all 8 restaurants, I can't emphasize that enough. What would you say it's been?
That dish for me is definitely my Tennessee hot octopus at Pearl and the Thief. It's kind of my baby, my favorite, my most inspired dish. It actually won Dish of the Year last year while Pearl and the Thief was open, and it just kind of really speaks to my style of cooking.
Wow, Tennessee hot octopus. Now Tennessee hot chicken, obviously. Octopus.
Yep.
How did that marry up?
Well, Pearl and the Thief is a southern concept, more Gulf Coast southern. We really wanted to focus on seafood, and I have an obsession with Tennessee hot chicken. So I really just wanted to take that play of Tennessee hot chicken and meld it with something that I love in octopus. So hot chicken's always served over some white bread, so to kind of mimic that, we did a squid ink spoon bread, which is kind of a loose cornbread. We dyed it black with squid ink, topped it with some crispy chicken skin, and then just sous vide this octopus tentacles in a nice Tennessee hot butter. Hit it with some bread and butter pickled fennel to kind of mimic the bread and butter pickles that usually come with Tennessee hot chicken. And it's one of my more proud dishes for sure.
That's obscene. That sounds incredible. And the texture of the octopus then, comparatively to chicken, does it?
The texture doesn't necessarily mimic the chicken. I think after a lot of trial and error, getting that sous vide temperature perfect. I mean, the texture I think is phenomenal. And then we just kind of sear it hard to get it nice and crispy, and then re-toss it in that Tennessee hot butter. It's definitely what I'm proud of.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And Tennessee, the more, I don't want to necessarily say informal, but I think the industry is moving away from fine dining a bit and more into, I think exactly what you're focusing on. The neighborhood, what's coming from the people, what do the people want? Do you feel like that's going to be the next big thing in food? Is there something else, or is that really the movement that's happening now? Are we getting away from you need 5 forks, 4 spoons, 3 knives, and are we moving back to that?
I think we've already started the process of moving away from that. There's definitely room for that. I mean, everybody wants to, go out and fine dine and do the 12 courses and have the 12 spoons and forks. But that's not realistically how we eat every day. And I think we've now figured out that you can still eat well, you can still eat good, you can have those flavors, you can have everything that comes with a fine dining meal, without all the extras. And I think once you strip down all of the white tablecloths and the fluff and the smoke and mirrors, it really brings the focus back onto food. And makes things like, my last restaurant I just opened is a pizza restaurant, and we spent 6 months trying to get the perfect Chicago-style deep dish pizza, and accomplish that. And I'm feeling more proud about a pizza restaurant than I did, when I was doing fine dining 10 years ago.
Man, and that's got to be what's so rewarding about just being in the industry overall, is that you can go in a totally different direction and feel the same satisfaction as day one of your original direction. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Absolutely.
And it also, cooking food like that, whether it's fried chicken, cheeseburgers, or pizza, it's actually more difficult to do well because everybody has, a frame of reference. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a reference point of what a good piece of pizza is, what a good hot dog is, what a good burger is. So you can't mask it with sauces and garnishes and microgreens and smoke and mirrors. You have to do it well. Otherwise, your ability for people to pick it apart is much greater.
For sure. For sure. You nailed it right on its head. Everyone's got an idea of what fill in the blank should be based on their mom or their dad or their grandma or somebody like that. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So getting back to that kind of grassroots approach, definitely being a trend, there's got to be things in the industry today that just drive you batshit. Like, what are you ready to see just burn away and die a fiery death, trend-wise?
Oh my gosh. To be honest, I think anything that, detracts from the food. I mean, anything that's on the plate that doesn't need to be there, pointless garnishes, pointless pieces of silverware, it's just, I think the direction we're moving is just really focusing on what this piece of food is supposed to be. So I'm over anything that's not, that's not real.
Yeah. Yeah. And so does molecular fall into that category?
I mean, yes and no. It's not. I mean, all chefs like to play around. I mean, it's fun, and it has its place for sure. I just think overdoing it is kind of where you lose sight. I mean, we've been searing steaks in a cast iron skillet since the beginning of time. Yes, it's nice to sous vide it and pick it up quicker and know you're not going to overcook it, but there's something about that pride of cooking a perfect medium rare steak in a cast iron skillet and basting it with thyme and garlic and butter and going through that whole process, rather than, shortcutting out. So I think, the molecular aspects are right for a time and place. I don't like seeing them where they're not necessary. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, talk to me about what's next. I'm almost afraid to ask what's next with 8 restaurants on your plate, but I'm sure there's stuff around the corner. What's coming up for Justin Sutherland?
Working on a few other things. I took over as the culinary director for the Minnesota United at Allianz Field, which is our new soccer stadium that just debuted this year. So I'm the culinary director for that. Spent the year curating the concession stands and kind of the food story for our new stadium, and also do the food for the VIP during games. And yesterday I debuted my own whiskey. I partnered with Tattersall Distilling, and partnered with a local but national brand, Tattersall, out of Minneapolis, and we've spent the last 2 years barrel aging my own whiskey that came out and got bottled yesterday. So that will go out for national distribution on Monday.
Oh my God! So 8, all right, 8 restaurants, a soccer field, and whiskey. It sounds like the start of a joke, but that's some serious shit, man. Wow.
It is.
If I ever complain about being busy again, I will be sure to think of you. That's maddening. Well, obviously, everybody here at the show, everybody listening, best of luck on everything that's going forward. And I'm sure, based on how hungry and driven you are, that it's going to be nothing but a stone cold success. After segment.
If you ever want to get back in the kitchen, come to Minnesota. Let's hang out and cook something.
Dude, I would be there in a heartbeat. And there's absolutely no question I would be there in a veritable second. Afters. Let's get a little crazy here and ask you some of the most irreverent questions on a culinary talk show that I'm aware of at this present time. I'm standing in your kitchen. Now, this isn't that crazy, but we'll get a little deep here. I'm standing in your kitchen. You can pick whether it's professionally or at home. Although if I say professionally, I've got to pick one of 8. So pick any of your kitchens you're goddamn in. What music do I hear?
Oh, wow. Probably right now you're going to hear some Gary Clark Jr.
Oh, cool. All right. Any others?
my musical taste is pretty as eclectic as my childhood eating. So it really depends. I mean, you'll hear everything from occasionally some country, sometimes some electronic, definitely some hip hop. But right now I'm definitely a blues and funk kind of guy right now.
All right, man. We'll take it. Fictitious scenario. You're going to be stranded on a deserted island. You can only bring 3 foods or food type items with you. Inexhaustible supply, but only 3. What would they be and why?
Oh, man. Definitely bringing tacos.
Nice.
Because who doesn't love tacos?
God damn right.
I mean, these are not going to be culinarily fancy food items. I mean, they're going to be pizza, tacos, and fried chicken, just so you know.
God damn right.
And I think they're all self-explanatory as to why.
Dude, that might, seriously, in 101 episodes, I don't think someone's fired them off that quickly, that logically, and just that, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, here they are. Enjoy. Tacos, pizza, fried chicken. That's possibly the greatest answer ever given.
You are well.
In coming up with the show, I can't believe I'm saying 5 years ago, I came across a book by Melanie Dunea called My Last Supper. Have you heard of this?
I have, and I hate to say that I haven't read it to my attention many times.
Oh my God. All right. So first of all, you're like one of maybe 10 people over 102 episodes who've heard of it. I have My Last Supper, and then there's another one in the series, The Next Course, and it's got Marco Pierre White holding a big French round in front of his face. So anyway, Melanie Dunea does this wonderful job of taking beautiful, stunning pictures and asking the chefs in the pictures, the same 5 questions about their punching out meal. And so I ask you, sir, what's your last meal? What would you have? What would you drink? Who would be there?
Oh, man. What would I have? What would I drink? There would definitely be endless supplies of Sazerac.
Nice.
And I think it would have to be just a smorgasbord of my favorite things, being fried rice, lasagna, and a big medium rare ribeye steak.
Love it. God, you don't get much better than that. And see, that's the thing. So many people answer it in such a direct, like, one flavor channel. I'm like, look, if I'm going out, man, like, give me everything. I'm not worried about hitting the treadmill tomorrow. Like, that's not a concern of mine at this point. So let's push past that.
The eating would probably be the cause of death before whatever else it was going to be, because I would just keep going until we were going to.
You're going to take the control away from it. I love it. Take control of that process. And Chef, final question. It's the shortest, it's the simplest, but the most complex overall. What is food to you in a single word?
It's friendship.
Love it.
I mean, to me, it is the 100% equalizer. It's one thing, you're never mad at a barbecue. That's what I tell people.
Woo!
Pissed off, sit down and eat.
Oh my, if that's not on a shirt yet, you need to get on that on top of your 8 restaurants and whiskey and all that shit. You can't be mad at a barbecue. That almost sounds like a cookbook for you, man. Not to add more to the fire.
Right? You might have just started something.
I'm so glad. Remember, I'm a partner. I'm a partner now. I came up with it. It's on the air. Must be true. No, totally cool, man. Friendship. And, again, inviting me into your kitchen, man, I'd be there in a heartbeat. So, friend, I appreciate your time, buddy. And thanks for joining us here on the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It was a blast.
You got it, man. Handsome Hog, located at 203 6th Street E, St. Paul, Minnesota, 55101, 651-340-7710. Fire and Whiskey, 230 South Knowles Ave, New Richmond, Wisconsin, 54017, 715-246-0154. Pearl and the Thief, currently in the process of moving, correct, Chef?
Correct. Downtown Minneapolis.
Downtown Minneapolis. All right, very good. And so many more to find, but if you're looking for Justin Sutherland, he's not hard to find. Go out on the Book of Face. Go out on the Gram of Instagram. He's all over it. Check him out. Again, super nice guy. So glad he did the show. And talented beyond human comprehension. Again, Chef, really appreciate it. This has been episode number 102 of the Coarse Ground Podcast. With me again this evening, the talented, amazingly talented Chef Justin Sutherland. Our producer, as always, has been Johnny Leland Robinson, a.k.a. the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out all his steampunk libertarian happenings in the 18431. Next episode will be 103. Stay tuned.
Hey, do you like coffee? Do you like gourmet coffee? Do you like really amazing gourmet coffee that's a total steal and just happens to be based on a culinary podcast? Well, look no further. The Coarse Grind Podcast has teamed up with the Mr. G Coffee Company to create the perfect custom blend. Dark is the logo itself with hints of caramel, sea salt, and dark chocolate. It is luxury in a cup at an incredible price. Be sure to check out their site today, MrGCoffee.com, and order some now.